Welcome to the Job Shop Show, where we talk with the owners, suppliers, partners, and customers of custom manufacturers. Listen and learn the secrets of top-performing job shops, the tools, techniques, and backgrounds that have made them successful, all in the quest of raising the bar for custom manufacturing. I'm your host, Jay Jacobs. This episode is sponsored by Paperless Parts, connecting buyers and suppliers of custom manufactured parts. The Paperless platform is a secure, ITAR-compliant, cloud-based manufacturing system for suppliers that reduces the amount of time spent on sales, estimating, quoting, administration, and order processing. It offers seamless integration with the accounting and ERP software tools that shops already use, such as QuickBooks, E2, and JobBoss. Paperless Parts was founded with a mission to make manufacturing more accessible by streamlining the quote-to-cash process. Spend less time quoting and more time selling. Greetings, Job Shop enthusiasts. This is the Job Shop Show, and I am your host, Jay Jacobs. Many part manufacturing operations somehow involve machining, whether it is the actual part itself or tooling to create parts. Today we're going to talk to Jeff Trevorrow, who's been involved with computer-aided manufacturing, or CAM for short, software for 26 years. Jeff owns and runs CAMs in Delaware, Ohio. CAM stands for Columbus Advanced Manufacturing System, so we'll get into that a little more later. They are primarily a CAM reseller, but are also into additive manufacturing and recently robotics. What is slightly different is that Jeff has been a machining customer, buying machine parts, as well as he recently started a machine shop using the CAM software he sells to support his customers. So in effect, he hits machining from all angles. Welcome to the Job Shop Show, Jeff.
Hey, thanks so much, Jay. It's a pleasure to be here.
There are so many questions I want to ask you, but I always like to visit shops, and we are not physically together. So perhaps you could walk me through what I might see if I walked into CAM's office, into your office.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. We moved into a new facility just over a year ago, and it was not easy to find that new facility. You know, when you're out there searching for space, at least in Columbus, Ohio, you find one of two things: office space or warehouse space, but rarely do you find a combination of both. And we needed both for what we were trying to accomplish. So when you walk in the door at CAM's, nice reception area, and you look off to the right, and you'll see two Markforged printers. You'll see the bigger industrial printer, and you'll see a smaller industrial printer. In between those, you'll see the Haddington Dynamics light industrial robot. And interestingly enough, it's printed like 90% on the Markforged machines. And those machines print with continuous carbon fiber reinforcement, so they're very strong parts. And so, you know, you're already starting to see part of the story as you look there. And then if you look a little more closely, there's a display case underneath, and you'll see machined parts and printed parts. And then off to the side, you'll see a banner for Big Rep. The Big Rep printers are a large format 3D printer, printing up to 1 meter cubed, or almost 40 by 40 by 40. So, couldn't fit that in the front of the office. And if you go around the corner, there's some offices off to your left, and mine is straight back. If you go around the corner to the right, the first thing you'll see on the left is a training room. And we've got 10 workstations in there. We've got 24-inch monitors for everybody. We've got an instructor table, and we've got a projector to project on the wall. All temperature controlled, you know, hopefully nice, comfortable chairs. You know, if someone's sitting all day long, that's an important thing to consider. And then if you walk a little further back off to the right, you'll see an engineering support area. And those are open cubicles. And that's so that as our engineers are supporting our customers, they're learning from each other. We like that philosophy that iron sharpens iron. And then there's a manager's office back there as well. And then if you go through the back door, then you're into the shop area. And so you'd see 3 through 5-axis milling, you'd see 8-axis mill turn, inspection area with 5-axis CMM. And then we've got one of the Big Rep printers back there as well. And in that space, we have the new Markforged Metal X system, which is a really unique metal printing system, 3D metal printing. So that's it. And you'd see, and the funny thing is lately we've been having a lot of meetings with our congressmen and city officials and things like that. And we've been having some of them here. So you might see some banners and, pop-up displays and things like that as well.
So local influencers, how are they, or what is your message to them in terms of the importance of manufacturing to the community and how they can impact it for the positive in what they are doing?
Yeah, that is not a message that needs to be delivered. They get that fully. So what they're really looking for are the answers, like how do we grow manufacturing? How do we bring more manufacturing into the state? And I think, as most of your listeners can probably relate to, the biggest need is people, skilled labor. And so we've recently started a training program called 80 to Work. We do that in connection with a company called MTS out of Orlando, Florida, a guy named Al Stymack. And he is probably the brightest manufacturing mind that I've ever met in my whole life. He's just a great guy. And with this 80 to Work program, what we do is we take people off the street, underskilled, unemployed, women and women who are not in manufacturing, women in any walk of life, and returning veterans, youth, and we put them through 2 weeks of intensive training. And they come out with the skills of, knowing a little bit about G-code, knowing some things about machine setup, a very complete G-code machine simulator that shows them if they're doing the right things or not doing the right things, the ability to read some basic inspection equipment and hand tools and that whole kind of thing. And then we do 6 months of follow-up training with them after that and kind of coaching, if you will. But so these, the government leaders, they're very, they're interested in our country being competitive and our state being competitive. And so that's been a really refreshing and really kind of an eye-opening thing for me. I didn't have any idea they were that clued in, if you will.
Well, that's wonderful. That is who pays for the 2 weeks, and I guess the 80 to Work is 40 hours a week, 2 weeks. Who pays for that?
It can be any combination of things. It could be, supported by workforce development funds and things like that. Could be that the manufacturer themselves just pays for it. But we're always looking for kind of that win-win-win. Let's get somebody trained and into the workforce, and then let's worry next about, and of course, let's give the manufacturer, a great person. And we've even, I recently hired someone that I've known for several years, and she came in kind of an admin role, but we've kind of borrowed the phrase from a guy named Gary Vee, famous podcast guy, of the chief heart officer. And so, she's also working with these people and really, trying to coach them on the soft skills, not just the manufacturing skills, not just the technology, but, the need to show up to work on time and the need to really try to be great in every area of your life.
So I'm going to read the description of CAMS because I think it plays into what you said, and then I want to circle back to the training. But I think this is really important because technology is dramatically impacting manufacturing, job shop manufacturing, but it does get back to the people. So the description of CAMS is committed to manufacturing excellence with a human connection. Our purpose is to support North American companies in making parts better, faster, safer, less expensively, and more creatively through the use of technology. We provide SolidWorks-based design and manufacturing software, including CamWorks, Marked Forged, and Big Rep 3D printers, 3D printing services, 3 through 5 axis CNC milling, 8 axis mill turn, and 5 axis CMM inspection. These are all technologies. So getting back to it, as well as training for each of these technologies. We're technically excellent, but relationships come first in everything we do. And now that you have a chief heart officer, it does circle back to all this in that there are wonderful technologies out there, but it still comes down to people. And as the folks who are visiting you are asking, how do we grow manufacturing? It comes down to getting these people trained on the new manufacturing technologies, whether they are already in manufacturing or whether they are new to manufacturing, looking for career change. Perhaps they have gotten displaced through no fault of their own.
Mm-hmm.
In this program, where do the people come from who attend the 80 to work? Are they
we're
brought to you by other manufacturers, by customers?
Yeah, right now, I'd say the biggest source that we're finding is from local manufacturers. But yesterday we had a placement, one of the largest placement agencies in the world came in, and just a wonderful representative from that company, and they are working with another manufacturer that's going to be cutting their workforce, as they retool some different parts of their company. And so it may not be a forever cut, but just at least a temporary cut. Mm-hmm. And the thing that's gratifying is you see that companies care at such a higher level than they used to. We do realize that it's a whole ecosystem. And the truth is, you could probably answer these questions better than I could. You built a 325 person company, and we're about a 15 person company. And so we're learning as we go. But especially if you go and look at the examples of what MTS has done, is it sounds crazy, but they've taken people who were homeless and taught them manufacturing skills and got them into the workforce and got them back on their feet. There is some aptitude testing that needs to be done up front. A person does have to have a basic aptitude for manufacturing, but beyond that, I think there's such tremendous misconceptions still in the country in general, maybe in the world in general, as to what manufacturing really looks like. So when I first, the way I got into the trade was that I grew up in Flint, Michigan, and it was a big thing. And one day my dad asked me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I'd never thought about it before. I was probably a sophomore in high school, and the thought had never crossed my mind that someday I had to be something. And so the neighbor was a fireman, and so I said, "Well, maybe I'll be a fireman." And he said, "You're good with your hands, and you're good at math." And I grew up racing motorcycles and riding snowmobiles and fixing them and all kinds of things like that. So he said, maybe you'd want to be a tool maker. And so I really never gave it a lot more thought than that. I ended up going to a vocational school in Ohio. But the first job I had was in a die repair shop. And they were a zinc die cast manufacturer. And I was in the tool room.
How old were you then?
I was 17 when I got that job. And so,
why a die repair shop rather than McDonald's?
Well, it paid a lot better.
Okay.
I was, I think, making more money by the time I was 18 than my mom was making.
Wow.
And I was working about 50 hours a week, so time and a half over 40. And she wasn't making a lot of money. We grew up pretty meager existence. But the point is that, one of the jobs I had to do was to go back and, set these trim dies and things like that. And you're sticking your arms down inside this multi-ton press, and they had this black goo called die slick, and it would get all over you. It was very hard to wash off. And even though, every safety precaution had been taken, it was always a little eerie sticking your arms down in these machines,
Yeah.
And so, that's still the perception of a lot of people of what manufacturing looks like. And, when you come into our place, we've got freshly painted, polished concrete floors, nice furniture, nice clean work environment. And so one of the other things that we really want to do is just change the perception of manufacturing. And although we haven't done it yet, we've been talking about bringing even middle school and high school students in, letting local companies maybe sponsor them for a day and spend half the day on SolidWorks and then the other half the day on manufacturing.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. Have you worked at all with any of the U.S. First teams?
I have not. I know some people. Yeah, and so we sponsored University of Toledo had a Formula I don't know if it's Formula Electric. I don't know, one of the race teams. We kind of sponsored them, donated some software for them to use. I know a lot of people who are into who are leading up those teams, but they haven't really made many requests of us. I'm happy to do that. If anybody's out there listening and they have something special they need, we'll do our best.
Well, that's fantastic. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. So the people side is obviously very important to you. And over the decades, it has become more relevant and the spotlight's been shown upon it with companies in general. So is that something that has evolved for you over the years, or has it been something that has been a core philosophy from you from the beginning?
I would say that life hands us all some hard knocks, and so probably through that process, I learned some empathy and gained some understanding of how circumstances differ from person to person. Mm-hmm. And for us now, the greatest joy that I've found in running this business are the successes of our customers and the growth of our employees and the teamwork atmosphere. So it's not about the money anymore, although we both know you have to pay the bills. Mm-hmm. But it's, my philosophy now is that if you want to get bigger, serve better.
I like that.
Thank you.
It is said in a different way from what we sort of put forth at Paperless Parts, where we want to create more value than we extract, and extract essentially meaning the time that someone puts into working with our product as well as what they pay for it. So they have to save time and they have to make more money than they put out. So, but I like the way to get bigger, serve better. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah. Well, we have, as we've been exposed to you guys and the product, just great people. And for us, that's the start of any relationship.
We'll try to circle back to that later. I want to talk about something that I have seen on your website and other materials that I've been exposed to about CAMs, as well as a little bit of our conversation before we started talking online here. And that is, it just seems you are naturally curious. So maybe you can tell me how curiosity has led you down different paths for both yourself and for your company over the years.
Yeah, I guess I would say that I try to bring high standards into the things I do, particularly in business and health as well, honestly. Mm-hmm. And so I'm always kind of looking for the better way to do something or the better solution. And you have to, and I think the truth is that some of the best things that have come to me in life have just been from keeping my head up and looking around and listening. I actually started the whole company because I knew I was about to get fired from a job. Okay. I was working for a small, and now they're actually a pretty good-sized job shop here in the Columbus area, and really sharp founder. But I was pretty, kind of a cocky young guy at the time. And we were in a planning meeting, and he said something that I didn't particularly agree with, and I rolled my eyes, and he saw it, and he stormed out of the office. And I said to myself, this is probably not going to end well. And so I made a list of 10 things I thought I might like to do. And one of them was to sell this software called ProCam by this company called TechSoft. And TechSoft has since been acquired, and that company has been acquired. And so, it's really no longer around as a name, and the product is long gone as well. But called up the VP. It was one of the things on my list. I said, who's your reseller in the area? I think I might like to work for them. And they said, well, we don't really have a good reseller in the area. And so I guess one of the key questions of my life was, would you like to? And
would you like to?
Yeah. And so that guy made me chase him for about a month after that. But we finally nailed it down. We became the distributor in the Midwest. They gave us a list of about 60 names. And they said, these are the current customers. And about half those people said they were other distributors for the product. And some other percentage, had no idea what I was even talking about. And there were a few that were actually customers. And this was like in 1993. And, it went slowly for the first couple months, but our 5th month in business, we were the number 1 reseller in the world. And,
wow.
And they had never had a company that came in from the outside and succeeded. And I don't know, I was having fun, and I was learning along the way, and I liked the environment, and I liked manufacturing, and it just, it took off, and it went well. But today we're really in what's the biggest business challenge of my whole life.
What's that?
And that is trying to grow the business from being a single product business, CamWorks, now into SolidWorks, which is just a phenomenal company. That's a company that has a lot of heart as well. And then adding things like the printers and machining and training as well.
This transition, this change from single product to what you're doing now, when did that start?
It started in, it really came about in the winter of 2017 when SolidWorks announced that they'd be licensing half of the CamWorks product and putting it in their product as SolidWorks Cam. And there's a Cam Standard and a Cam Professional. I knew that we had had an exclusive in the territory before that, this Midwest territory we're in. And we covered typically Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky, Ontario, and a little bit of West Virginia, Western PA, and things like that as well. And so I knew I was going to have some new competitors coming along, and most of those people tried to buy us, and that was sort of gratifying.
Yeah.
But unlike selling Rapid, I told people that they were mac and cheese offers. And not spiral mac and cheese, just the straight cheap mac and cheese.
What's a step above ramen noodles?
It wasn't a ramen offer, but it was a mac and cheese offer, yeah. And so I could have eaten mac and cheese for the rest of my life and not had to worry too much. But I felt, that we had 3 directions we could go. We could bare our heads and cross our fingers and hope for the best. We could be prepared to shrink as these much bigger companies went after our install base, or we could aggressively try to grow and compete. And we took that third strategy. And hey, some things have worked really well. Some things haven't worked, and we're kind of restarting them. And so the whole story is continuing to take shape right now. But the ecosystem, this manufacturing-centric ecosystem, with the philosophy that you can't teach what you don't know. And if you aren't doing it, you won't continue to be great at it. Your skills will slide. So that, when I say if you want to get bigger, serve better, we're trying to grow our skills so that we can serve better. So we can be a manufacturing coach, not just a guy teaching you software out of a book.
That was a question that came to mind was, now that you're making parts, do your customers see you as a competitor?
It's something we try hard to counteract. We're not trying to compete with our customers. I want their success more than I want my success, and not overall, but I'm talking in terms of making parts. Yeah. We've got a small group of machines, but, so we'll bring in technologies, we'll test out these technologies, and we'll share any and everything that's working well with us or for us. And our goal is to help them get better, help them make more money, and help them have more fun along the way as well. So, we've even I've got a shop down the road. And this is one of my early customers, company called Exact Machine, a guy named Rich Arthur. And he bought, I think, in like July of 93. He was one of my first 5 customers, and he's still a customer today, and he's a great guy. But, he had a job last year and he called me up and he's like, hey, I think this would be better on your 5-axis than on our 4-axis. You can do it in one setup and it would take me a bunch of setups. And he was like, how much do you want? And I just said, hey, just pay me whatever you think it's worth. Mm-hmm. And so, we're not trying to make a fortune back there. I'm not trying to become 100, a machine job shop or anything like that. I just want to stay on the cutting edge and I want to be able to train it and teach it better. I want my applications engineers to be able to design a part in SolidWorks, put toolpath on it in either SolidWorks CAM or CAMWorks, take it back to the machine, set up the machine, get the tools touched off and run the job. And I figure if my guys can do that, I'm going to stay a step ahead of those big resellers that aren't doing that.
I think it's also a way to take that skills gap, and with the manufacturing in-house, you have the ability when you hire a younger team member who doesn't have the experience, a way for your current team to not only show them on the computer, but then to get out on the floor and say, this is what actually happens in our customer shops. So there's a huge link there in training as well. Beyond
no question.
Beyond certainly the development of different skills that you can share with your customer base. So a win all the way around. And I like the phrase, the ecosystem or eco-center of excellence. And that really resonates. So I think is a non-competitive situation when a CAM reseller has a small shop to be able to do the types of things that you're doing with it. So
we're hoping to, help our customers with overflow work, things that they need to get done quicker. Another reason we really like the paperless parts quoting system. We also, want to help them with running technologies that maybe they're not running to do certain parts. So it really is first and foremost, it's two-pronged, right? First and foremost to serve our customers and right along with that as, an adjunct to training so that, because, it's just crazy to think that you'd put somebody in a classroom and that they'd never get outside the classroom and that you expect them to somehow learn these machines, right? It's got to be a combination of both, in my opinion.
We used CAMWorks as one of several CAM tools at Rapid, and one of the things that I really liked about the product was the volume mill. Perhaps you could describe what that does and how that is something that's definitely helping manufacturing and just a different way of approaching machining from a programming standpoint.
Yeah, so VoluMill is a great product. I tell people sometimes that I think there have been, 5-6 game changers since I've been in the business, and I'd be happy to talk about those if you want. But VoluMill was one of them. And so VoluMill is this ultra high efficiency roughing algorithm. And it's the idea, when I started in the shop, we had a 1/2-inch cutter and we were going to go a 1/4 inch deep and we were going to step over a 1/4 inch. Right. And I started so long ago that we were going to conventional mill on the manual machine instead of climb mill on the CNC machine, But then, even up until, even today, people still use that philosophy or those rules. And a lot of times, I would say at best, there's 50-50 out there of people running these ultra high efficiency roughing algorithms and not. And there's a few of them out there that, compete at various different levels, against VoluMill. But a traditional pocketing routine, if you think about pocketing a triangle, when you put that cutter up into the corner, you're going to have 270 degrees or so, or a little more buried of that cutter, I guess 270. But, and that is going to be your slowest point. So you have to program your feeds and speeds for your slowest point in the toolpath. You can't program it for the fast, time you're zipping along the straight. It's got to be for that corner, and you get that heavy sound, right? When the machine kind of
Right.
bogs down a little bit. So with VoluMill, the philosophy is that we, instead of going down to quarter inch, stepping over a quarter inch, we want to go down at least a 2-to-1 depth to diameter ratio. So if we got a half-inch tool, we want to go 1 inch deep or more. And there's guys running a lot more than that. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to vary our step over based on the hardness of the material. So if we're cutting aluminum, we might step over 40%. If we're cutting tool steel, we might step over 6, 7, 8%. And carbon steels, maybe 13, 15%, something like that.
Sure.
And then the other thing that VoluMill does that's really unique, it's doing chip thinning going into the cut, chip thinning coming out of the cut, and it's varying the feed rates to keep a constant volume of material removal. And the bottom line on this is that you find people getting 2 to 4 or even 5 times faster roughing cycles. You see them getting 3 to 8 times better tool life, and you never hear that heavy sound.
That's the thing that amazes me is you are removing material much faster, but you actually get longer tool life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's guys out there taking Haas mini mills and turning them into like high-speed machining centers, right?
Right. So, when did you start selling to CamWorks?
So the product ProCam that I started out with in '93, kind of more or less morphed into CamWorks. CamWorks was released in '97, and so we were using it and testing it before it was ever released, and we've been selling it, the whole time.
So that's part of.
We're fortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now we've got some competitors. We didn't used to have any competitors. Mm-hmm. But we're fortunate in that we've got a wonderful post-processor writer. And for anyone listening today that doesn't know the importance of a post-processor or a good one, they just haven't been around too long, right?
Right. And sounds like the fellow who, or maybe it's more than one person creating the post. What's the average experience? How many years has the average person on your support team been involved in machining or job shop manufacturing?
Yeah, well, if you like working for me, I can tell you those numbers, but as in manufacturing, it's hundreds of years of experience on the team. But I've been, I feel like I've done a couple things well. I haven't had the most aggressive growth curve of anybody you're ever going to meet in business, but I have cared at every step along the way about doing a good job. And so my employees, Diana, who is on my customer, support. She's not customer support, but she works with all the customers. She's our first point of contact with all the customers. One of our directors, she's been with me for 21 years. And Brian, who writes posts, 16 years, probably close to 17 right now. Wow. Nate, who's our director of additive, 14, 15 years. Mm-hmm. And so, we've got a bunch of people who have been part of the team for a long time, but now we will have hired 8 this year. And so, not quite, what did you went from 1 to 325, right?
Well, we started with 6, but
6 to 325.
Yeah. And
so what was that like?
That was quite a journey. And I have to say that our growth accelerated when we really started to take the ideas and the philosophies that I had out of my head and that the team heard, but not in a larger sense and in a consistent communication. So we brought in a system that allowed us to operate the company on a regular basis. We use something called the Rockefeller Habits, which is now known as Scaling Up, and it's a pretty comprehensive system. But what I realized is that the core of it was that it went from me to team, and what that really meant was it created consistent communication throughout the company, and that started from the vision. And I really liked the core purpose we ended on, and the core purpose of Rapid was we manufacture time. And everyone in the company knew that, and you could make decisions at the micro level based upon knowing what the core philosophy was.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's something that we're in the midst of right now, is refining all those processes and really getting the message disseminated and making sure that everyone knows what we're about. Yeah, that's huge.
It took a while to get to that short little phrase, but that was part of the process, is that we continually communicated, and it was a joint effort that finally the light bulb went off in that, yes, that's what we do. We manufacture time. That encapsulates everything that we're doing at Rapid. So that was a lot of fun in that it did not just come from Jay's head, that the team really created that phrase. And I have to say, one of my proudest moments at Rapid was on the sheet metal side, and we came up with a new manufacturing cell that could be scaled. It's about 1,500 square feet, self-contained, and all I did was say yes when they wanted to get the funds to try it out. The entire concept was developed by the sheet metal team, starting with the fellow who ran the business, David Pulio, but it was not just him. It was a bunch of people who put their heads together and said, how can we keep up with the growth at Rapid Sheet Metal? And I remember being at the ribbon cutting of the first cell there, and again, all I did was say yes to spending the money to try it out, and that was really neat. That was one of those moments where you're really proud of your child, and so definitely.
Wow.
But getting back to it, that's how we grew. Is we really brought team into play, because I realized that the growth was being limited by me, and I needed other people to make decisions, but I wanted them to make the decisions based upon the philosophies that we had developed and how we wanted to serve our customers.
Yeah, that's exactly where we're at today, is trying to pass on just kind of the basic rules, if you will, right? On this is how we make decisions, this is what we're about. And, just like you said, if it manufactured time, it was a yes for you. And within reason, I'm sure there were other constraints around that.
Sure.
So that's where we're trying to go as well. And also trying to, bring in higher and higher capability people. And more experienced people.
Yes. So before we leave this subject, I'm going to give a plug for a lot of job shops and other companies have asked me about an operating system, and I realized that the scaling up system, great system, too complex for most job shops. And what I mean by that is probably any job shop up to 5 million or so is struggled implementing it. We, at the end, at the scale we had not 100% implemented it. So I have, rather than trying to verbalize the things we've done, created a open source, a free to let you go out and use it as you can or want to apply it. And it's called the Shop Operating System. So if you go to shopoperating.com, we have the philosophy of what it's all about, as well as a program and all the tools to implement it and try it yourself. So I am just really adamant that a company that wants to grow has to expand beyond the owner. And sure, you can grow with the traditional hierarchy of companies, but in my experience, we just got so much more out of everyone, and it made life so much easier for me as an owner to not have to make all the decisions. So part of my payback is I've, again, created this shop operating system for other shops to try to put into place. And
can I speak into that for just a quick minute?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm actually taking notes over here. So, I appreciate being on today, but I also want to learn from you. We've both been in hundreds and maybe thousands of shops,
Mm-hmm.
and, we've had thousands of customers along the way.
Yeah.
And what you find is that the average machine shop owner, the typical machine shop owner, they're great people. They're just, they pay their bills. They do what they say they're going to do. They operate with integrity 99% of the time. But it's also tough, for them. They're trying to run the shop. They're trying to do everything. They're trying to find good people. And sometimes we get behind, right? Sometimes we're not on the leading edge of trends and technologies even. And then something like this. And I think, I just think that you're right. That could be magical for a lot of shops to start to share the decision making, empower the workers, trust that you're all about the same thing, and life just gets more fun and easier. I'm with you.
And it starts though by being able to create that vision and some of the other things so that the team knows what you're about, so they have the framework for making decisions.
Yep. Yeah. I'm with you.
One of the other areas that I have wanted to give back is the company I co-founded, Paperless Parts, which you have been exposed to. And I would like to hear how you think Paperless Parts is having an impact on the job shop industry in general and machining in specific from what you've seen.
Yeah. So, I've heard some of the other podcasts and people who are using it very successfully. So we're going to come at it from a little bit of a different angle. And that is that, last year, we're trying to get this small job shop up and running. And again, we're working very hard not to compete, with our customers, but it doesn't mean that we're not, quoting jobs and things like that as well, because we are.
Yes.
And that was the hardest part of the whole thing. Programming the job, cutting the part, it wasn't particularly, sometimes it's harder, sometimes it's easy, it's whatever. But you know what to expect. But quoting the jobs, oh my gosh, it's just arduous. And we weren't really very good at it. We didn't have a lot of experience with it. And so this time around, as we've kind of been tweaking the shop and changing the focus of the shop, but at the same time, wanting to be good at every aspect of it so that we can teach and share that. We got exposed to you guys. And so even just last week, I brought some of my people onto a web meeting with Jason and Jason Ray, just a great guy. The truth is, the first time I talked to him, I just felt this is a really quality human being. And, he's articulate, he's intelligent, he leads, I think, with his heart as well. Yes. And he's just a total asset. And so I knew right away that if it was good at all, that I wanted to work with you guys. And then last week, we got our people on to watch another online demo of the software. And the funny thing is that our director of additives, Nate, he was like, "I've seen this system before," and so we've worked pretty closely with Re3D up in Chicago, and they're using it for their quoting system. And so he had the perspective of being a customer using it, and just how easy it was. And boy, if there's anything you want to do for your customers, you want to make it easy for them to do business with you. Mm-hmm. And the harder we make it, the less likely they are to come back. And so he had that great perspective. And then I had, my lead guy from the shop watching, and, he's loving it. And again, for me, part of the reason I like it is because they like it, and, right. But also the fact that it integrates with our website. So for us, it's just a win-win-win. And it's something that we want to share it with our customers so that they can make life easier and faster on that end as well.
So one of the guiding principles that we are looking at is that in a job shop, the owner typically comes from an operations perspective rather than a sales perspective or a finance perspective. And if you think about that, where they add the most value is not in the front office. It's being out on the shop floor where they can, just through their experience and wisdom that they've obtained over the years, make an impact on reducing a setup time, changing perhaps a fixture, hearing a machining center just doesn't sound right. Those are all ways where they can impact the top line and increase customer satisfaction if you can prevent a reject or make sure parts are delivered on time. So one of the things that we are really trying to do is, because the owner typically it's his company and they are involved quite heavily in the quoting process, but let's decrease the amount of time that it takes to get quotes out the door and get the owner back into the shop. And oh, by the way, if you get quotes done faster, you get them back to your customers faster. And we proved at Rapid that the faster we return a quote to a customer, the higher the chance of winning the order. And it was amazing how many times where we would return a quote an hour or two after we got the email in, and within minutes we had a purchase order for those parts. A lot of times we were told by customers we had parts in their hands before they even got quotes back from the other guys. Buyers today are not waiting around for quotes.
No. Buyers today are more educated than they've ever been before. They say that, over 75% of the purchase decision has been made by the time they reach out to you. And and so you're right. Boy, and your technology is it's for me to say it's beautiful, maybe that sounds like an overstatement, but it's beautiful because it's elegant and it's and I believe, simplicity and actually testing it and finding out where things get hard. I love the Apple philosophy. The Apple philosophy is we're going to make something and then we're going to put it in the hands of people and we're going to watch them use it and we're going to see where it gets hard for them. And when it gets hard, we'll work on that area to make that better. And if you keep doing that over and over and over again, then your product can do nothing but get better. And you guys have done a great job with that.
Well, thank you. And I want to highlight a word that you used earlier, friction. And I constantly communicated at Rapid that we wanted to create a frictionless business environment, that the more we made it frictionless to work with us, the higher the likelihood that somebody would do business with us and just not look at doing business with anyone else. Because if you think about it, there are so many suppliers out there that are not easy to work with. And those are the ones where these guys perhaps are forced to do business with them. They know it's going to take time. And so if they can work with a trusted supplier who's frictionless, then that just gets off their desk and they can focus on the areas where they know they're going to have to focus on. So eliminating friction was a core principle of how we tried to develop all the tools that happened at Rapid. And I'll share, we sometimes made decisions which frustrated the hell out of my operations folks, but we would do something that was more difficult for us on the operations side if it would make the customer's life easier. And I told folks, yes, we could do this perhaps more efficiently or better, but it would not help the customer. It would actually create friction in the customer relationship. So we're going to suck it up. We're going to figure out how to do it better ourselves, but we're not going to sacrifice the customer for something that makes us feel good about what we're doing internally.
Yeah, the customer experience, right?
So I'm
Yep.
a little bit on my
awesome.
soapbox there, but so this gets into something that you had talked about where you're trying to improve the success of the average machine shop. And why do you think shops struggle to improve regularly? Where do you see them struggling the most? And how can we help them? How can they help themselves?
Yeah, it's funny that if you look at the number of seats sold of CAD versus CAM, it's about 10 to 1. So there's about 10 seats of CAD sold for every 1 seat of CAM sold. That's what we think the number is industry-wide. And the corollary or the opposite side of that story is that you might spend more time supporting that 1 seat of CAM than you do the 10 seats of CAD. Because you do have things like post-processors and machines, and you can make real-world crashes when things don't work. And so, so it's a challenging business. And then you look out in the shop environment, and and you look at it's an aging workforce, and so a lot of the guys who are talented are now in their 50s and 60s, and they're not going to be doing it, for 20 more years.
Right.
And so we're starting to see, we've been seeing talent leave the industry. And as they go, they take a lot of their expertise with them. But also because it's such a small manufacturing community, when you really look at it on a macro scale, that what we find, is that programmers, they find something that works, and then that's the way. And then sometimes the minds, snap shut, and they're not always open or looking at the latest technology. And we say that, CAM software is often like a Ford and Chevy thing, where, the Ford guy thinks the Chevy's terrible. The Chevy guy thinks the Ford is terrible. And the truth is they're both great trucks.
Yep.
And, pick one and run with it. But then pick the one that's right for you. Don't buy, you might go to one shop and the Ford might be the right truck for that shop, but you go down the road doesn't mean the Ford's going to be the right truck for the next shop. And it's a little more complicated than trucks, as you know. But so don't think that just because something worked one place, it's going to work the other place. It could be that the opposite technology is much better. And one of the things that we've done, we won't take a sale if we don't think it's a good fit. And if we, I'll recommend my competitor if I think they're the right solution for the job.
Well, that's certainly putting the customer first.
I mean, I think you have to. And people, and you go back to then the quality of the owners and the quality of the people in the trade. They remember that. And when they find someone they can trust, I mean, so you talk about frictionless, and frictionless is wonderful, but then you add trust on top of that. Can we trust you? You're going to make the right part. And then, then build a human relationship, and you start to get the trifecta going there, and they're not going anywhere else. If you're being fair, you're doing it right, and you're doing it easily.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have covered a ton of territory today.
Yeah.
And we're getting to a point where we probably should start winding down. But we haven't touched upon some of the newer technologies you've brought in-house, some of the additive manufacturing, the robotics. Anything you want to share there?
Yeah. This company, Haddington Dynamics, they are, just like the other companies we've been talking about, great people, great technology, super affordable, super easy to use. You can set the cobot up, and in 5 minutes you can be programming it, and anybody can do it. And we're taking, it's not going to be the machine that's probably loading and unloading your CNC machine, but it can do a whole lot of other things. You're looking at about a 3 kilogram weight limit at the full extension, but incredibly precise, incredibly easy to use, very affordable, under $12,000 for a 7-axis robot, and super reliable. And so we're really excited about those, and seeing where they go. Mark Forged is making great parts. I don't know if people know about, the continuous carbon fiber reinforcement. I'm sure you do. You're right down that neck of the woods.
Sure.
But, they're nearing and surpassing the strength of aluminum in some cases. And so that's cool. The Metal X, really brings metal printing down to an affordable level. So yeah, what else? I don't know. It's just, we're trying to create this ecosystem. And here's the last point I'll share is that, design for manufacturing, design for additive, design for subtractive. These are real concepts that are worthwhile. And I will share one last thing after this too, that I think is a game changer for job shops. But learning where the part fits, don't just take the machine part and throw it over the fence to additive and expect that to be the right solution. If you're really going to leverage additive, you're going to look at reducing the number of components, and you're going to look at design for additive. And so we've got guys on staff that are very, very good at that. We think some of the best in the industry, and we're always happy to consult on that stuff. We've done some super cool projects just this month. And then the last thing, I guess, that I do want to share that I didn't touch on at all, and that's MBD, model-based definition.
Right.
And quickly, just the idea that when my grandfather was a designer at AC Sparkplug, he was on the board. So every day he had his big board in front of him and a sharp pencil and, his tools. And then we went from the board to, really, let's call it AutoCAD because they dominated the 2D CAD market. And then we went from 2D CAD to 3D solid models, which were beautiful and wonderful. And tools like CamWorks knew how deep the hole was, knew what the diameter of the hole was, knew if it was threaded even,
Right.
And, but what it didn't know if that hole was reamed or drilled, didn't know, what the tolerance was on that pocket. And so you always had the working drawing next to you to consult along with your solid model. So MBD is this idea that we're going to take, the part manufacturing information, we're going to put it right in the model. And you no longer need the working drawing. Everything you need is in the model. The tolerances are in the model. You can go to 3D PDFs, free viewers to view the 3D PDF. And then there's tools coming along like tolerance-based machining inside CamWorks. And, I know our competitors have, things as well for that, where we're actually looking at the tolerance and we're choosing strategies based on the tolerance we see in the model. One of our best successes was a company in Fraser, Michigan that makes mold bases, and they were using a very large competitor's software, and they were taking about 60 minutes per part to program them. And we took that programming time down to about 15 minutes per part. Really? And we used it by leveraging the automation. We leveraged the feature recognition, and we leveraged the PMI data on those parts and the tools that were there to do it. We brought in a guy who took the open API and we wrote a thing called the color-based macro, where we found, certain things and not only segmented them based on the type of geometry, but also by the color. And yeah, so the end result was, from about 1 hour per part down to about 15 minutes per part. And that's maybe the extreme end of it, but we've seen, great time savings in a lot of different accounts.
That's amazing. Part of it is you have to embed that non-geometric information into the part, and that's where MBD really, if it's going to shine, that's what it is, and that's where it can make a difference.
Yeah, and how many times are you going back to the manufacturer because you can't read something on a blueprint, or it's old and it's been scanned, and all these kinds of things? It's just it's a lower friction way to make parts, right?
That was a goal at Rapid, was to not have to use a drawing. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Jeff, I very much appreciate you spending the time with me in the audience and sharing some of your wisdom. If someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, so Jay, I really appreciate it as well. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I've taken some notes, and I hope to continue to learn from you as well. But our website is www.cutmetalfast.com. So CUTMETALFAST, fast-not-slow.com. And they can also call us at 614-410-2300. And then my email is Jeff.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I don't know. Or they can email info@cutmetalfast.com as well. So, and I'm on LinkedIn. So any of those ways is great.
I love your website name. That's a great one. So, well, thank you everyone for listening to this episode of the Job Shop Show. If you have any comments about the episode, please visit thejobshopshow.com and you can post it in our running comments section for each episode. And until next time, keep those spindles turning and those presses cranking. Have a great day.